Hello, variable data class, print 145. This is your instructor, Ben Kewitt. Today we're going to talk about the very first steps into a larger world of bigger Luke. Just kidding. But we are going to take a look into a bigger world of variable data. We're going to do our first little dabblings of attaching data lists to InDesign using XMPie, and we're going to practice getting it set up correctly and properly formatted. Now, I can wait till the end of the video to give you the good and the bad news, but let me give it to you right away straight because there's no reason to waste your time waiting to hear it. So with the trial version, we can set up all the language we need and create the protocols to do the job, and we can scroll through and see that it does it, but we're not going to be able to output a PDF out of here because they have disabled that feature in the demo version that we downloaded. The other good news is the demo does not appear to expire. And there's always the chance we'll be able to go use our lab sometime later this semester if our state gets its act together and we start to get to a point where we're not just a giant ball of contagion all the time. And if that's the case, we will be able to take files that we make here and just put them onto computers in the lab that have the full version of the software, and it will be functional. Okay, business out of the way, let's get on to the good stuff. Let's talk about what this does. I can link with nothing in here so far, so let's go to that. My window's already open, but just so you guys have the chance, let's go up here. Oops, sorry. Go to Window, XMPie, you create print. I'm going to pretend to click because mine's already open. If I click again, it goes away. So there it is. This super powerful data integration software is a little tiny palette menu inside InDesign. It's also has some plugins that work with Photoshop, which we'll get to later this semester. And those are really, for me, the fun parts of this, the variable image work. But let's get started with understanding how it works, what we're doing, and what it does. So up in the top of our palette, little palette menu, the hamburger menu, as I've heard them called before, you're going to go, not the top one here, but to link to, there's a few down. We're going to choose data source. Your data source, you're going to have to find on your computer. You have to browse for it. Hey, look, I already have my path opened up. Look at me being all prepared. This is where your data management is going to start to really come into play in your print layout life, because once you start creating paths to things that this program is going to go through your computer and find these things, you're going to need to be able, sorry, you're not going to be able to, your computer needs to be able to find a clean path to the things that you want to link to. The first thing we're linking is a data list. So I'm going to choose data list combined, the one that we made, not the California version, but just a combined from the two data lists I sent you. I'm going to tell it to open. And it says the separators are comma. If you're using a semicolon or tab delineated thing, that's not something I recommend, but if that's the type of file you're using, choose those. Remember that CSV means comma separated values. Whew, and we get this happy little pop-up. Link to data source successfully completed. Okay. Now, here we have it. Here is our list in our little, whoop, what did I just do? All types. I guess I had something highlighted somehow and I scrolled through it funny. I have found that using the Zoom meetings to record this does sometimes interfere with my mouse's smooth operation. He says very defensively about his clearly subpar mouse operation skills here. And I'm supposed to be teaching this stuff, but really it gets a little jumpy. Anyways, you have first name, last name, company name, address, city, county, state. Scroll with me, would you? Zip, phone, email, web. All those things should sound familiar. I wish I could scroll. It won't let me scroll with the scrolly wheelie thing. You can stretch this box as big as you want because it's a palette menu and you can see they're all there. So if we switch back to desktop and I use my preview mode again for the same data list combined, open it up, you'll see that the column headers are called first name, last name, company name, address, city, county, etc. And bouncing back in here over to InDesign, that lets us know that for sure now that those column header names, the names in the tops of each column, the first row, becomes the names of the data points that get put into here. And so this is just a general data management thing, but definitely now more so. It amplifies your data management practices when you do this. Things need to be named boringly, logically, and literally, because you will have problems if you try to do anything clever. If you name the file types after an in-joke, because first name means Greg, because that's the joke that you and your friends say to mean first name, you're not going to be able to remember that later on in life when that's not funny to you anymore and you can't remember why it's a joke. So first name should be named first name. Company name should be named company name, not corporate overlords, although that would be kind of funny. Company name should be the name of company name. It should be pretty literal and pretty self-explanatory for all these things, because when you start doing things that get complicated, you don't want to have to waste your brain power remembering what on earth you meant. To quote one of my favorite brothers, Daniel, the graphic arts guy who does the work for, I think it's Unbroken Studios at this point. So he does video game design and level creation and artwork. He always says he also teaches, by the way, at LCAD. I'm just babbling, sorry. Anyways, but the Daniel quote of the day regarding file management and all these sorts of things is, the worst coworker you will ever have is yourself from an hour ago. So do your future self a solid, do good work so you yourself have a chance later on, because how you set up your files, how you save your files, how you name your files is setting your future self up either for success or failure based on the choices you make now. Oversharing from some meme I saw online this week, an actual inspirational one that I kind of liked. Here we go. We always talk about the butterfly effect in terms of if you go back in time and you change a butterfly so it doesn't beat its wings when it would have, that changes the whole force of nature, and all the cascading consequences of one little tiny act in the past can ruin the present. Well, why don't you think about that in the present sense? All the little tiny things you do now shape the future you're going to live in. And I mean that in a very petty sense here. How you name your files is going to be how you're able to work tomorrow. So name them sensibly. Okay, let's get on to the stuff you actually care about. So we have our first name, last name, company, all these things. There's a T next to them. That T should look an awful lot like this T here, the type tool. That's letting you know that these are text type data points. Without doing anything extra complicated, let me show you how these work. So with your text tool, we're going to open up a text box, just like we always do. This is still InDesign, the same one we know and love. So far, there's nothing in our text box. We can double click on any one of these, and now there's one. Double click, there's another one. Hey, James Butt. That's right, guys, you are watching another butt video with your instructor. Isn't that great? Here's James Butt once again. I don't know how he survived elementary school with a name like that. Return, company name, any of these things that you put in here, address, they all come from the data source. This is all information that InDesign is reaching into the CSV file, and it is pulling out information from that spreadsheet and putting it here for you. Hopefully you guys are like getting goosebumps or getting jittery about the possibilities of what this is going to let you do, because this is way more powerful than it sounds, and it does so little, and that itself is very powerful. For instance, all this stuff in here is currently in Minion Pro, because that's the basic paragraph style that InDesign comes up with when you turn it on. It's the default text. You can make this whatever you want. Yeah, Air Force rating, like on the side of a plane. But seriously, can't go wrong with Helvetica. It's Helvetica. Whoops. Forgot about that. Sorry. I is the shortcut for the eyedropper. There you go. Now it's all the same. Woo, that's one way to do it. And whatever you change the type to, it's going to be. Other notes about this. If James Butt is misspelled, or Benton or Blue Gum, if any of this information is wrong and you need to change it, oh my gosh, there needs to be a period in North Blue Gum Street. So you take your cursor and you try to click and type in there you'll notice anytime I click, I'm just clicking once, I cannot edit this information here. This information this information is only appearing as a linked file. The information is being pulled and brought over here, but it's not fully here. The information still lives in the spreadsheet. If you want to change information, change spellings, change in any of the data that's in this data we're connected to, you got to bring that up in Excel. You can't do that over here. It's too late. And by the way, that is a wonderful feature. Thinking that it's inconvenient is like thinking that flip covers over those buttons that launch missiles is inconvenient. They're there for a reason. You want to have to think about it before you go and make these changes. They can really screw things up. So it's better that the designer, sorry guys, that's us, better that the designer doesn't screw up the data. So, and also I'm always worried about strange side effects. Anytime I'm working in InDesign or any of these graphic programs, I like to imagine myself kind of like a doctor trying to do a minimally invasive procedure. You know, you don't need to cut open someone's chest cavity to bandage their finger. You just need to bandage the finger. And anytime you're giving medication to things, there's always side effects that have to be worried about. And if you just want the headache to go away, you don't want to also then develop liver disease while getting rid of a headache, right? Well, that's the same thing true, but to a much lesser extent over here in print. We don't want to cause problems by thinking that we're solving them. So the fact that you cannot alter the data, but the data just comes from the other side is wonderful. And that also lets you know that whenever you click once, it highlights the whole thing. So if I try to do anything, the entire data point goes away. You cannot alter the data point. You can apply styles, effects, graphics, you can apply fonts, anything you want to it. But the information itself, as far as InDesign is concerned, is sacrosanct. You cannot change it from over here. And that's a good thing. Running short on time on my first video here. So let me show you another thing. Over in the palette menu for XMPie, you create print. Down below, I like to have highlight dynamic objects turned on. You can turn that on and off. When it's on, it shows that the dynamic objects, which is their name for the data points you brought in from your spreadsheet, are always highlighted, like you highlighted the text in a different color. That way you can tell at a glance, oh yeah, that's going to change. Kind of like if you remember looking at, if any of you guys are old enough to remember actual hand-drawn animated cartoons before everything went computer, you could always tell by looking at a cartoon which parts were the animated cells that were going to move and which parts were the background painting that weren't. The animated cells always looked kind of glossy and the background paintings always looked kind of watercolory and matte. So you could always tell just by the image quality at a glance, oh, that's going to move. Think about this the same way. You see that little blue highlight, you go, oh yeah, that part moves. That's not part of the background. The dynamic parts are the parts of an animation that get to animate. And I kind of think about this as, in a way, a strange sort of temporal animation that we're doing here. So we have all our things here. Let me go down onto this palette menu again. Down at the bottom, below the highlight, you have data source. We're going to leave that turned on for now. And you have a 1 of 501 on the right. You guys see that? I call these elevator buttons. It's actually just changing which record. You're cycling through the records to see different ones. If I go down, it goes the wrong way, but it still makes a change. You'll notice everything I put in there suddenly changed to the other record. So let's go up, because we go from record 1 to record 2. Now it's Josephine Durakji, and she's from Shanae Jeffrey A. Esquire on 4B Blue Ridge Boulevard. So let's take a moment and compare this just to prove that it's doing what it's doing. So here we are back in our preview. Again, I like to look at these things in preview because it doesn't apply all that extra formatting. And to me, this is easier to read than actually opening Excel. Also, when you actually open Excel, there's a chance you might make a change that you didn't want to make. So I like to preview in ways that I can't alter things. But if you look up here, Josephine Durakji from Shanae Jeffrey A. Esquire on 4B Blue Ridge Boulevard is in fact the one that just came up, and that's record number 2. So that proves that this is shifting, cycling through the different data points and putting them in accordingly. We're going to come back in a minute. We're going to take another look at this. So hang on for a second. I have to stop this recording because I'm running out of time.